How about the Cardinals trade deadline? We've had some folks ask about that as well. I think it's pretty interesting because if you'd have asked a month or two ago, you're like, easy, add a starter. But now Palante's been so good, and maybe you're like this, like there's no way they're going to get rid of any of these other guys, these veterans, Lance Lynn, whoever it is. If it's not an injury, like Palante is pitching so well. I mean, could you make a case that if you get a really good pitcher, Palante as a long man in the pen helps you there? But I think Palante is actually better as a starter. You can always load up on bullpen guys. What do you think the Cardinals should do, can do? I don't know this year what they're gonna do. I would have said starting pitcher easy a month ago, but now it's kind of a tough call.
Well, you can just stock up arms and just use them whenever someone's having a bad day. Like that's just good to have as many guys as possible. And I know that that's a very mundane take because everybody in baseball kind of agrees with that. But yeah, you literally can't have too many arms. And so we could see maybe not necessarily like a John Lester and Jay Happ type trade deadline, but maybe even more bullpen arms. Just you never know when it's going to be somebody's bad day on the mound, and so it's just good to be as prepared as possible for that. And gosh, I don't even know how the roster still expand to September, right? What do they expand out to? Do we know the number?
I feel like nowadays they just add a couple people. Like back in the day, you'd have 10, 15
Yeah,
dudes.
you
Is it
would have
only a
like
few?
damn near the 40-man roster come up,
Yeah,
but
it was too many back in the day. I should
yeah, so
know that,
I don't know what it's at now, but
but I don't.
at some point being, at some point the roster is going to expand, which allows you to get even deeper into your bullpen. So I think that, and John Mosaic, like I said, that he said that you can never have too much pitching, and he also I didn't like what he did. It was an interview that he did with the Cat, I think, at a pregame here within the past couple weeks. Cat was asking about the trade deadline, and he kind of laid out the cushions for a very soft landing on a trade deadline, and
Sure.
it's kind of talking about how, I think this is actually going to be a rather disappointing trade deadline for a lot of fan bases because he said that it's not going to be competitive because there are so many teams going after such few assets.
Yeah.
That's the definition of competition. All right. There are a lot more people than there is water at the watering hole. So there's going to be competition. Now, there aren't going to be many people who are big game hunting, and evidently the Cardinals probably aren't going to be one of them, but somebody will be. Everybody's talking about Tarek Skubal, who's got 2.5 years of club control, is one of the best pitchers in the American League right now with the Detroit Tigers. If somebody makes a move on him and people in Detroit are wanting the Tigers to move on from him because they think that they can get an absolute haul for him, then if somebody gets him, then that's a big fish in the pond. Garrett Crochet, big fish in the pond. Luis Robert Jr., big fish in the pond. Not Brent Rooker. Brent Rooker should have been an all-star. He's got like the 6th best OPS or something like that in Major League Baseball. Didn't even make the all-star team with the A's. So there are some guys out there that will be big pieces that will turn heads. But so for John Mozeliak to say that it's not going to be that competitive because there are a lot of teams going after not that many guys. I mean, okay, so you're not going to be competitive, but other teams will be because other teams are going to be calling those teams, the White Sox, the A's, the Tigers, those teams out of contention, asking for those guys. And so I think that was kind of, putting together a nice soft landing when they bring it together, probably just like a Jonathan Broxton and a Steve Cishek like reliever combo or something like that. And Cardinals fans are like, who are these guys that we just got? And they're just like, decently good relievers. I think that's kind of what he's laying the ground floor for.
Yeah, I'm okay with him actually setting the bar low because in the past, I think as an organization, it never makes sense to say too much and to get people's expectations up. For a while there, they didn't do anything at the deadline for about 3 years. I feel like at the end of Matheny, beginning of Schilt, then they went out. They needed so much pitching the last 3 deadlines before last year when they had to sell everybody off. But I mean, I'm talking about the Haps, the Lesters, the LeBlancs, the Quintanas, the Montgomerys. So I guess it was the 2 seasons before. So it was 21, 22. But the guy that I think makes perfect sense, and this is before Palante has started to pitch really well, but like Eric Fedde is like your perfect Cardinal. He just is. Like when you say Eric Fedde, he's a Cardinal. I mean, his numbers are freaking good, man. 2.98 ERA. Now his FIP is 3.0. 6'7", doesn't strike out a ton of dudes, 104 strikeouts in 117 and two-thirds innings. Comes back from Korea. What, a 2-year deal? I believe it's $15 million. So you get him for next year. He's 31 years old. He just feels like a Cardinal. Now, I do think you have to give up a pretty good amount because that's a pretty dang good pitcher, year and a half of control on a very manageable contract. But like, to me, in the same way that Sonny Gray felt like a Cardinal, if the Cardinals are going to make a deal, Eric Fedde feels like the Cardinal, but everybody else is going to want him too.
And you were talking about what they would have to give up. And that's actually something that I think is different in Cardinals talk radio than probably a lot of other teams in a lot of different cities, because a lot of other major league cities have NFL teams. And if you have an NFL team, you're an NFL city. You're a football city. And so I think that in St. Louis, more than other cities, you are probably more aware of what's going on in the minor leagues because that
Sure.
feeds right into the majors, obviously. And so I think that's something that people in St. Louis pay more attention to and get more attached to prospects. So the trade deadline talk is always interesting to me in St. Louis, how attached certain people get to certain prospects. Whereas I spent most of my life not caring at all about what takes place in the minor leagues because I haven't seen a lick of it. I
Mhm.
don't watch minor league baseball. I am not as smart as Kyle Reese. I'll tell you that right now.
Whoa.
So, yeah, hot take. But I've always been somebody who kind of came to St. Louis with the attitude of like, if I haven't seen him in the major leagues, like I have no idea what he is. Just because he balls against double A players and triple A players, I'm supposed to expect that he's going to come to the major leagues and just be a stud. I mean, if he's Paul Skeens, yeah, sure. But just my general philosophy, I have a strong bias in favor of the major leagues. So I'd be willing to cut bait with almost anybody in the minor leagues. Now, obviously, the people who are in charge have a lot more
Tink,
information on that than I do.
Tink
Um,
Hens.
yeah, and man, I saw somebody on Twitter last night, and I couldn't even. I was doom scrolling so hard after that Pirates Cardinals games. I couldn't even help myself, to be honest with you. I saw somebody championing the draft class from. I think they were championing Randy Flores for the draft class, and I want to say 2020, where they're talking about
COVID,
Jordan
yeah.
Walker and I think it was the Alec
Mason
Burrows.
Wynn, Burleson,
Yes, and
Tink.
they threw Tink Henson there, attributing Randy Flores and all of his success to that draft class, or a part of his success to that draft class, because obviously Alec Burleson had a big hit last night, so they're celebrating him and saying the importance of that draft class. Tink Henson hasn't pitched in AAA yet. Okay, and we're already celebrating him as being a part of one of the best draft classes that the Cardinals have had in recent history. He
Well, you have
hasn't even
Mason
pitched in
Wynn.
Memphis.
I mean, Jordan Walker still could be, we hope, still will be good, although the longer it goes, you kind of wonder. But Tink Hens is
It's
a
been
big
so
prospect.
long since Jordan Walker got sent down. I can't believe
No,
how
no,
long he's
I
been
know.
in AAA.
Listen, I'm saying like I have my questions now if he's ever going to reach that type of potential. But let's see. Tink Hens, he was Baseball America, what, 84th best prospect entering this year. Major League Baseball 64th, Baseball Prospectus 54th. So he's a pretty big prospect. That's fair to say. And his numbers this year, double A, I mean, 3.29 ERA. He's got 73 strikeouts and 54 and two-thirds innings. So pretty impressive there. But he is small in stature. He's kind of wispy, so you wonder. But then you could say, oh, he could be like Pedro Martinez. Everybody says he could be Pedro.
Or Fernando Valenzuela, he was short, right?
But
But
he was fat, though.
uh,
All due respect, Fernando.